Welcome to Familiar Territory, an anime podcast hosted by two white dudes who've been friends for over 15 years. Here we talk about the history and influence of anime, as well as review anime new and old. So grab your talking cap and transform into some comfy clothes as we step into a familiar territory. My name is Grant.
And I'm Brantley. Heads up, spoilers on the way. Check the description, see if you're safe to listen. G. Symphogear G. In the distance that day, when the star became music. That's what we're reviewing today. There's more Symphogear. Yay!
I'm excited for this.
Everybody wanted it, as far as we can tell from our YouTube metrics.
Our analytics said that this was a watched episode. People watched this one. And so I wanted to watch more.
Let's be honest, you wanted to watch more because you like Symphogear.
I do like Symphogear. I think Symphogear, this Symphogear G kind of is, in my opinion, where Symphogear gets its stride.
I'm gonna take your word for it, you know?
Well, like,
by the way, all you out there, don't get a swelled head over this. We were probably gonna cover more Symphogear no matter what. So.
Yes, I want to watch all of it. So
we love you. Please don't leave us.
So Symphogear G is the sequel to the hit 2012 anime Symphogear. It stars your
what's the full name?
Symphogear G.
No, the original season's full name.
It's like Symphogear meteor falling, burning, and then it doesn't finish.
Close, but yeah.
I don't like that you said close.
Listen, the rest of this review is going to be me entirely forgetting or neglecting details and you filling in the gaps for me, so I'm trying to get as much leverage as I can. Okay.
So, Symphogear G stars the same three main girls from the first one. You get Hibiki, you get Tsubasa, and you get Chris, who is all but forgiven for her war crimes that she committed on the world. And it starts out with, you guessed it, a concert in which the noise come and almost kill everybody. But this time, they're in control by one of the new characters. Whoa, Maria, and she has the Gungan ear, just like Hibiki, and she has two friends who are
there.
I have their names up, and like I know their names, but I don't want to not pronounce them correctly.
Kirika and Shirabe.
Yeah, that's it. So. And they have conflicting opinions on how the world should be, so they fight each other. And that's basically all of Symphogear G. There's a lot more to it, and we'll talk about it.
So final thoughts, Grant?
I do want to ask. So as I mentioned in the first one that I think Symphogear G is significantly better than Symphogear. I still believe that. I still hold it hard. I actually liked it a lot more the second time watching it when I was watching it with you. What do you think? I'm curious as to what your opinion is, because I know you're not the biggest stan for our musical magical girl show. So what's your hot take?
What I think on it?
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I had to, think about it, which is not something I had to do very, thoroughly with Symphogear Season 1. I felt like, for some reason, it was just very cut and dry how I felt about that. Symphogear G is... Okay. If I want to go in broad strokes, it's very easy to describe how I feel. I'll give it some differing attributes to lay down first. It feels like it's got its priorities straightened out.
Hell yeah.
So it is not quite the same mixed bag that Symphogear Season 1 is. I think I like season 1 more.
What?
No, it cannot be!
I didn't. When we started, I was like, "Oh no, this is definitely better." They just figured it out. They got their formula. But but in terms of like what they actually try to accomplish, I think I have like more appreciation for Symphogear season 1
Okay.
somehow. And no, I don't expect anybody else to feel that way. But I would be lying to myself if I said that I like Symphogear G more, I guess. It's complicated. We might just have to unravel this along the way. But I can Symphogear G is probably better thing, but I don't care as much for it. Does that make sense?
Yes. So I'll try and dissect it. Are you saying that Symphogear G probably as a whole is a better produced show, but it doesn't have the heart that Symphogear season 1 has, and so you don't feel as attached to it?
I think so. Yeah, like if like I would actually have a harder time recommending season 2 than season 1.
That's wild to me. It's absolutely wild to me. Considering the fact that I don't recommend Symphogear to anybody ever.
well, yeah. Oh man. Well, okay. So I have a question for you then. So I think we can agree that Symphogear has its priorities figured out by now, and then
yes,
the way you've described at least season 3 to me, it feels like it only continues in that trend. You said it hit its stride. So what would you say Symphogear's priorities are?
So I think Symphogear works best when it plays loose with its rules and focuses on the wacky shit that it is. So like Symphogear season 1 is a fairly straightforward show. You get some wacky shit near the end with the moon crashing down on Earth and a guy fighting a god for no reason. But there isn't Dr. John Way Veracroy in it. And I think that's the big sell for me. I think, or hold on, how do you pronounce it? It's
I'm not. I can't touch that with it.
Troy. It's something, but
it's Dr. Ver.
Dr. Ver, but his name is John Wayne.
On it.
And I think that he kind of represents what this show is about, but we can go into that a little bit later. So I think with the batshit focus on the rest of the show, I think that makes it good. But I understand where you're coming from, because it seems like with Symphogear G, you feel like, oh, well, maybe it feels a little bit more manufactured.
Yeah, I guess it's like, for some reason, I feel that Symphogear Season 1 has at least some attempt at integrity.
Okay.
And I don't get that. Like, I don't think they did a good job of it. but like, I don't think that was a focus at all for Symphogear G. Which, for some people, perfect. You just get more fun, more stupid, faster, better, you know? Like, but, for me, it means, like, it just does not stick. For, you know, and that's probably my fault for having any kind of, anticipated pretense that Symphogear would have integrity. But that's where I'm at. You know?
Hey, that's all good. I disagree, but
welcome to the final episode of Familiar Territory,
where we yell at each other.
Yeah, we'll get the official season 2 where a new co-host comes in who's not Brant.
So, well, I can't replace you because no one else is gonna edit these shit like you do. So we're stuck. So Symphogear G, like we talked about, does have a little bit more whack shit to it. And it comes almost exclusively from the fact of I think most of it comes from the new characters. And I think we should talk about them because they're probably the biggest change when it comes to the series shifts.
Mm-hmm.
So we get 3 new Symphogear users who act as kind of the antagonists of this season. You have Maria Eve, you have Sherbe, and Kirika. And they work for a terrorist organization called FIS, which is all about Fine, led by Dr. Ver and Kikuo Inoue, who is also known... I'm not Kikuo Inoue, that's her voice actress. Professor Nastahasa... I can't pronounce it. Hold on, let me look at it. Let me look at the pronunciation. They call her Mom.
Yeah.
And they are trying to reincarnate Fine into one of the 3 girls. And I swear to God, each one has their own like couple episodes where they think they're the incarnation, and it doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
So, the show starts out with Maria and Tsubasa singing together because Maria acts as a idol, and basically the entire purpose was her to get on stage with Tsubasa and try and get her to reveal that she's a superhero. And she summons the noise, but the noise are under her control, so they don't kill anybody this time. So that's good. And then when the 3 girls try and fight her, it turns into a full-on magical girl duel. And I think that's where the show shines in terms of combat. I think there's some really fun animations that they do with the weapons and the way that they fight in this show. And I'm a big fan of that part about G.
Mm-hmm.
So the show starts off. We'll go a little bit episode by episode here to kind of explain what happens. Although I will say that this show, as much as I think it's tightened up a lot of its personality, the story in this one seems so fucking weird.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's super out of place. So not out of place necessarily, it's just all over the place. So you have the Staff of Solomon, which is the thing that creates the noise from the first season, being transferred, and then Hibiki and Chris try and get it, and then it's retrieved by their group. And it's super weird because this group has apparently been acting for a long time, but there's no mention of them in the previous season. So it kind of seems out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm. Much like the noise themselves.
Yes. But the show, I think G's a little bit harder to talk about in terms of like plot wise, because most of it is just it's like with Chris you get to follow her character a little bit more than these 3. You get to see them a lot, but they spend a lot of time just kind of sulking and being yelled at by Dr. Ver and Mom, while the 3 main characters are just trying their fucking best.
Mm-hmm. So I typically, like, I think I'm a constructivist when it comes to like my worldview of like reality, which is to say, like, I believe that the world is kind of, it's there, but it's not there, in the sense that like what we're perceiving, your brain is having to like figure it out in front of you, right? Mm-hmm. That who knows how real it is until you're sort of like, making contact with it, and even then it's still vulnerable to your perception. Like that's just kind of, that's the best way I can sort of rationalize my world, and then that ties into how I view other things, like, learning and just living and philosophical stuff like that. But I feel like this show sort of strengthens that feeling that, like, the world's not entirely there, it's of your own perceptive making, because I feel like I'm in a fucking wobbly fever dream whenever I watch Symphogear G. Like, it doesn't feel like anything's real. I feel like I'm constantly being lied to my own perceptions, in which I'll ask Grant like, wait, what didn't who was this person working for? And you're like, oh well, it's this and that. And I'm like, did they ever talk about that? And you're like, yeah. I'm like, oh okay. It feels like I legitimately can't stick any of this into my memory, and like all of it is on like a knife's edge between like that never existed or was this a retcon in my brain.
Well, and this show's pretty bad about that. I mean, one of the big plot points in the first half is that they're trying to bring back the Nephilim, which is a giant biblical relic that's going to destroy the world. It does bite off Hibiki's arm, which proves to be mostly a mild inconvenience because she grows it back within like the first 5 minutes of the next episode.
Oh my god, that happened in this season, didn't it?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
But you're right.
Like there's so many times where I'm like, did my brain make this up? Did I just like forget this, or like was this a retcon that like changed from season 1 to 2?
No.
If the world was more real than it is, than I think it is, then I would hope I'd be handling it better than this.
But like that's kind of like the whole point, because up until this point you have the antagonist Symphogear users, Shirabe, Kirika, and Maria are pretty gung-ho about destroying the world. They're pretty okay with everything going on. But at this point, Dr. Vare just like murders some kids for no reason. And they're like, maybe we shouldn't like this dude. And after that, shit gets whack. There's also a plot point about Gunganir trying to take over Hibiki's body.
Mm-hmm.
Which gets dropped. It's a weirdly important plot device that they try to use, because it's the more that Hibiki uses Gunganir, the more likely she is that it will kill her. But it doesn't do much, if that makes sense. Like, they mention it a lot, but there's very little times where it actually prevents Hibiki from doing anything.
Well, it's because they nip it in the bud. They just literally are just like, stop doing anything, Hibiki, or benching you.
And then she does it. She does it
yeah,
anyway.
But they usually like they make it more severe each time.
Yeah, they do. They keep it consistent.
Mm-hmm.
But the series ends with the Nephilim being fully created by Dr. Vare, who's wanting to destroy the world and reframe it in his image, and all 6 Symphogear users get together with the power of music and love and all that good shit. They kill the Nephilim, and then Miku does a super awesome gold medalist hurdle by throwing the Staff of Solomon into another dimension, so that's pretty sick. But it's hard to explain all of Symphogear G. A lot of stuff happens. There's like a subplot of Chris trying to fix her mistakes of season 1, where she's trying to get the Staff of Solomon and destroy it, and it ends in like a little double agent type thing. Miku gets a Symphogear for one episode because she wants to stop Hibiki from fighting, so she's like, oh well, if I destroy the Symphogear, then she'll stop fighting.
Also, she gets like straight up captured by Dr. Vare, and then like basically like tricked / against her will forced into a Symphogear with Linker and junk like that. So,
and then there's also the Linker subplot where the newer Symphogear users don't have as much of a connection to the Symphogear, so they have to be injected with Linker. They mentioned this in with Kanade in the first season, so at least that's consistent. And then the show ends. It's there's stuff that happens, but I feel like we'll talk a little bit more about it as we talk about the characters. So let's double back and let's talk about Maria.
Okay.
So what do you think of Maria, like as a character?
I want to say that she's a good addition to the cast, but like in a sense she almost becomes just like bland to me. She has very cool Symphogear powers and stuff. I dig the diebuster cape that just sort of like it's kind of like armor, kind of like cloth, and you can like tornado around with it. Like that's cool. So like, and in terms of like combat and stuff, it feels like she's a fresh part of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I will say before we go deeper into like characters, I do think that the three new characters, it's pretty interesting how different they fight compared to the other three Symphogears, the original ones. I think that the weapons they use can help create. It's more unique, and it doesn't seem very samey, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah, when it comes to Maria as a character, it feels like I don't actually know what her motivations are. Like I know that she's working for she thinks she needs to be like the one to reawaken Fine, and she's got like a dead sister to succeed, but I don't know what she wants out of all this.
I mean,
it feels like she's just kind of indebted to the situation, and then eventually wakes up to the idea that like, oh no, this fucking sucks, and then kind of ends up breaking away from it. That's all I could gather from that.
I will throw down some hard knowledge. Appreciate it. She's an adult. She's 20 in Symphogear G.
Is she? Okay.
I kind of wish that all the characters were that age, but whatever.
Yeah.
But I think that she follows the problem that Tsubasa has in the first one, where she has such a connection to the survivor's guilt aspect of her character that you don't really get to see her delve any deeper into anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't even get like a fun little outing with her friends. She doesn't get to hang out with anybody and do anything. And I kind of don't like that.
Yeah. It kind of feels like there's a wall between Maria and Kirika and Shirabe. Like there's like the early part of the show where she kind of like tells them off about what they're trying to do or something. And then like from then on it kind of feels like it's Maria with mom, and then Kirika and Shirabe are kind of on their own with each other.
Right.
Which like that's how their missions end up a lot, but then it doesn't feel like they're a trio at all after that,
Right. And
which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it just also means I don't get to know what Maria's like compared to other people because she's not interacting. She's just loning the whole time.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good point. I think that there could have been a lot more chemistry between her and the other girls, especially because there was an age gap, and maybe she could have some form of issues with having child soldiers on her team, but she doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't think about it. She doesn't talk about it. But I appreciate them trying with her. I feel like they saw what they did with Kanade, and they're like, maybe we can do her a little bit better. And I mean, Kanade sucks, and Maria doesn't suck, but she's boring.
Yeah, she's not really a. I was gonna say she's not a problem, in the sense that like yeah, she's helping with war crimes, but like she practically doesn't seem to understand what she's even going along with, and maybe that's just because she's underwritten in that aspect. But in Symphogear language, I don't get the impression that she's like a bad or problematic person, because they kind of just absolve most characters like her of being like actually involved.
I will say that Maria, Kirika, and Shirabe do go to prison, and they are at jail for the first like episode of the third season.
Gotcha.
They have that's actually a plot point in season 3, so we won't talk about it too much, but they do talk about getting being terrorists. So yeah, I think that's a pretty good analyzation. She also has a terrible outfit. Fashion design is better in this one than it was in season 1, but it's still pretty bad.
Yeah, they have some baseline decent outfits.
Yeah.
But there's still some just like I believe Chris's like spaghetti strap top on top of a hoodie is like I still think maybe like my number one favorite bad outfit just because it's like so impossibly like unnecessary.
Oh, it's so bad. It's so terrible.
Like there's other outfits that are like stupidly layered as well, where it's like it feels like someone wanted to introduce more like color and variety to the outfit, but they didn't know quite how like cloth works or like, you know, contemporary styles. So it's just kind of like layers of things. It's like, oh, it's a low cut dress that's stapled onto a long sleeve shirt. Okay,
I do want to mention something while we're talking about character designs. So I don't know if you noticed this, but the characters do look a little bit different in this season. They have a little bit. Their outfits are not the only thing that's different, but like some of their details are a little bit more prominent. Like Chris, everyone's hair is a little bit thicker instead of being it's a little thinner in the first season, and that's because they got a new character designer for this season.
Oh.
So, the episode director, key animation, and assistant animation director was Ozaki Fumatoshi in season 1. And in Symphogear G, they actually got a completely new directing cast. So, Katsumi Ono is the new director of it. His big direction stuff is he was a director for some Yu-Gi-Oh seasons, and some story arc and some storyboard. He doesn't actually have a lot. He has a little bit less skin in the game than the previous director, but he will be the director for the remainder of Symphogear. He is the director for season 2, 3, 4, and 5. But the new animation director, who is the new key animation director, was the key animated he was the key animation on Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, Full Metal Alchemist. He was the key animation for this show, of course. And he was the key animation for the Madoka Magica movies and Princess Tutu. But
interesting.
The big thing that he did is he's the character designer from Milky Homes.
Oh, wow!
He is the character designer. Like, he's the one that created the characters for Milky Homes.
You know, that makes sense in a weird way.
His name is Seiya Numata.
It still feels like I can't entirely wrap my head around how someone can make like the outfits for this show. It feels like a lot of work to get there, you know? Like even compared to like the Milky Homes outfits. But I also recall like especially like the villain cast of that show, they have some goofy attire there too occasionally. So yeah, interesting. Yeah. I totally didn't pick up on like the difference initially, but for some reason what sticks out to me the most there is Yu-Gi-Oh! It just like that for some reason clicked something in my brain in like terms of directorship. I don't know why. Maybe it's because of like the whole like ancient relics type of thing and like you know, these kind of like one-off dramatic plots that like don't sweat the details too much. I don't no, whatever it is, like it just something makes sense there.
I get what you're saying. And yeah. It's pretty whack because I didn't notice this until I was looking at some of the outfits for this season. Because I do remember there's a couple that I'm actually like a fan of. I like Sherba gets a second outfit, and I like it, and it looks good. But I also think that Kirika's outfit in this season is absolutely atrocious. It's so fucking ugly.
Kirika does have an ass on the grass moment, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And their Symphogear outfits are also one of those that are almost okay. They're almost good, but they have like a clear mesh on them, and it makes it bad, like terrible. Yeah. And it was so close to being competent.
We got Hibiki the scarf.
We did get Hibiki the scarf, but we did get some other pretty shitty things. So let's talk about Shiriba and Kirika. Who do you want to talk about first? I mean, I really don't think you can talk about them outside of each other, to be fair.
I was gonna say that. Yeah, I think they're kind of like conjoined. You know, like, because each of their conflicts is kind of like intertwined with each other. So I think that Shirabe is probably the more compelling to me out of the two, because she's the one who kind of seems to... She says the most interesting things in this season out of anybody, I think. She's the one who tells Hibiki to stop speaking in platitudes, and later on is like the first one to sort of like heel turn on the whole operation they're doing.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
It feels like... Go ahead.
She's the only character with a brain.
Yeah. She's got the brain cells. She borrowed them, and she's keeping them.
Because everyone else in Symphogear is very irrational and doesn't really act in a way that makes sense a lot of times, except for Shiriba. She literally is, like you said, she's talking to Hibiki, and she's like, what you're saying makes no sense. Stop talking like this and do shit. And it actually is a character moment for Hibiki. It doesn't really go too far, but I like her a lot too as a character.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what, they sure stopped having peace talks for quite a while there.
Yes.
They're just like, all right, some motherfuckers need to get put to the ground. Yeah, continue.
I also like that she has a robot for no reason. That's like her final form.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think her and Kirika's relationship is actually fun. I kind of like it.
It's getting there. Like it's kind of on the same wavelength as Tsubasa and Chris, where I'm not convinced that they have like chemistry, but at least they're talking with each other, and at least there's some tension, and they have some opposing viewpoints to sort of bounce back and forth. You know?
Yeah. I like that. They argue. I like that the moment that Shiriba like defects, like Kirika doesn't also defect, and she actually fights against her because they have that kind of feeling to it, and I actually dig that a lot. I also like that when they do sing, and all their songs are duets for the most part, and I like that a lot.
Yeah. I think they've got a good song, too.
Yeah, their song's really fun. And they also straight up say that I love you to each other. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah.
Is this season more gay than Symphogear season 1?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, there is less Hibiki and Miku going on, but the people who are here are more clearly dating, like, or like confessing their, you know, affections for each other. Like there's more intimacy in this season. Like Hibiki and Miku's conversations will translate in the subtitles we watch to them going on dates. Like it's, you know, they're holding hands, as you mentioned. Like Shirabe and Kirika are talking about loving each other in their lyrics. You know, like there's the whole like tsundere thing with Chris towards Tsubasa that's going on that I don't really dig, but it's happening, so like sure. Like there's just a lot more love in this season. Yeah. That's the impression I get.
I wish they would lean more into it in terms of a romantic thing. I felt like that. I feel like that the show kind of uses it more of fan service sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not a fan of that.
Though the fan service itself is something I think deserves its own talking point. soon. Do you want to have that talk now or later?
Let's go for it. Let's go for that talk
Okay.
right now.
I don't understand the fan service in this show, and it feels like the creators either also don't understand it or they just straight up don't care. When we're watching, I don't think there are any moments in which like it's clear in any way other than visual that fan service is going on. Like if you're listening to the voices or the audio in general of what's going on in the episode, and you were just doing that, like you did not have visual information, then you would not know that Symphogear G contains fan service. Like this is, no one ever calls attention to it. There's never like there are like instances in which, like, for example, Chris will explode her Symphogear suit as like a last resort attack. And then she's just like, for some reason, she doesn't have her clothes on, which is not usually how the Symphogears work, but whatever, it's happening. And you're like, oh, okay, that's not normal. But nobody says anything about it.
Right.
They don't use that opportunity to do like a Babaka don't look at me. They just don't. Nobody mentions it. And then she gets her clothes back before, that goes on for too long, and that's it. And like there is fan service. It's gratuitous. They'll throw it up in the screen. It's close-ups on like body parts, like the suits. They just love giving these characters wedgies, and I don't get that at all. But they do, and they're in the camera pretty frequently. But again, nobody mentions it. It just exists.
Yeah, it makes it feel a lot less like I was talking to I've been reading some like discussion on it, and there's been a lot of people that are like, oh yeah, because Symphogear's fan service is so in your face, it's kind of it's the same excuse that people use for like Kill la Kill, where it's so in your face that it becomes less titillating, and like I don't like it either way, but it kind of has that same impact where it's just, it wears you down so hard that you barely give a shit about it, besides to be like, well, that looks dumb as shit.
Yeah, it feels mandated, right? Like it's like it's something that it almost feels like it has to happen, in the same sense that like the blocking of the script might describe like that we're entering a scene and it's a classroom, and on the chalkboard it says this message, it says, clubs today or whatever. Like it's that kind of detail. It's just like, well, it exists, so it goes in. There's no nuance to it, there's no artistry to it, it just exists.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what it's like, but it sure feels like they did not care. It's difficult to pin on where it's coming from. I don't think there's any good way that I know of to say whether it's like, if it's in the writing and the artists deal with it, or the writing never had it and the artists put it in. I don't know if it's coming down from executive up top, like where it's like, their sponsors are basically saying, hey, put this in so we can sell our figures. I don't know. I don't get the impression that they care. It's still gross. I still hate it. Like, especially with Chris, because they never really did, like, they never unpacked her whole, like, backstory of trafficking and sexual abuse from Fine, aka Ryoko, in the last season. And even if they did unpack it, it's still like, don't do this weird shit to her where you're like, you're giving her like chest bounces every time she like flies in on screen. It's like, stop it.
Right.
But also, I don't get the sense that anybody wanted this to happen. I don't know. It's
yeah. I agree. I'm not a fan of it, and I kind of, and I'm just gonna repeat what I said in the first episode we did of Symphogear. I think Symphogear would be a much better show if they just nixed all of the fan service.
You certainly wouldn't lose anything,
right?
Because like again, it doesn't get mentioned,
right?
You know,
and as I said earlier, and when we were talking about it, how some of the relationship stuff seemed more fan servicey. It seems like it was trying to be more like, haha, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Don't you like lesbians? While in the first one there was some of that, but I felt like it was a little bit more realistic and a little bit more romantic.
Yeah,
there's a lot less romance in this one. And when you do,
it's more kitschy. Yeah.
Yeah. That being said, I don't actually know how any of this plays out because I've only seen season 3. So I'm actually a little interested to see if they delve deeper into the actual relationship aspect of it instead of it just being gals being pals.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so we should probably get back to Kirika and Shirabe, right? What were we saying with them?
Well, I think we talked most about them, how they're a pair, they have a good song, and how Shiraba actually thinks and does things that are interesting.
Yeah, I think that Kirika ends up getting sort of the raw end of the deal, where it feels like so much of her time has to be spent, like, sort of like, she's either trying to goad, like, a good time out of Shirabe, when Shirabe's doing her whole, like, deadpan shtick, or she's in the middle of having, like, a crisis about the whole Fine thing, and no, I will be the one to carry this burden type of thing going on. So it feels like she gets less time to actually be a character.
Yep.
I couldn't pin down, like, one... Like I couldn't pin down, like, a description of her personality. It just kind of feels like she's torn by whatever is happening around her.
Yeah.
She's kind of reactive.
Yeah, and, like, you could play with that a little bit more, but they didn't.
They don't have time.
They don't have time.
There's so much going on. This show is just hyperventilating with, you know, how much it has to, like, get out. You know, and, like, there's, like, periods of downtime, but even then they're still trying to, like, they are juggling this with, like, twice as many characters as the previous season. More than that. Like, you know, like, we not only have, like, you know, say, our main 3 plus a few more important people from headquarters, but now we have another main 3 and their own headquarters. Like, we have legitimately, like, doubled the cast, and the show can't handle that in you know, the amount of time it's given.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah.
Especially because the villain in this one, you have Mom and John Wayne. God, I fucking love his name. Holy shit, he's my favorite. But because, like, in the first one, your main villain was a god who appeared at the, like, last 2 episodes, and, like, you had Ryoko in it, but she wasn't as active as the other 2, and so
Chris was pulling the weight, and she's still kind of the main 3, and so, like,
yeah.
Ryoko was kind of sidelined for a good chunk of it, you know, until she has to actually step up and replace Chris as, like, the villain.
And I actually kind of dig Mom in this season.
She's fine.
She's fine. I like her, like, arc that she has, where it's just kind of weird because it's like every single person in this terrorist organization, it was like, oh man, John Wayne's a piece of shit, and they all just realized it at different times, and that's a little weird.
Yeah. Yeah. I need help with something.
Yeah, go for it.
What was Mom's motive? I forget entirely.
So she was the person that found like the people that could channel Fine in the orphanage, which is Kirika, Shiraba, and Maria. She was kind of like she wanted Fine back, right? And she was the one that was training the 3 to become Fine.
Right.
So I mean, similar thing. She wanted to cleanse the world of, evil, but it's a war god. You don't get to choose that.
Yeah, I just never quite understood, like, why. I don't know. It just felt like, what, that's maybe my problem, is I'm trying to question, like, why would these characters go all this way for an ideal which is very, very vague and kind of, just nebulous, to be like, I wish the world was a better place, so I'm going to recover ancient technology and attempt to conscript this war god through the body of a child, and or adult in the case of Maria.
Yeah.
And then we'll, like, I don't know, blow some shit up and try again. Also, there's, like, alien interdimensional creatures we can summon and play around with. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
to me, I have a hard time grabbing onto, like, the rationality between why she started. But I can also empathize with the whole, like, yeah, I'm out of this bullshit. So it's like, it's weird.
Yeah, it is weird. And it's not great. I just kind of like some of her personality. I wish they gave her a little bit more of a... I kind of felt that she was kind of too evil sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I wish they would have made her a little bit more loving to the girls. But I want to talk about John Wayne, because that's the only reason you watch this show.
Yeah.
So
take the floor on John Wayne.
I love John Wayne. I love John Wayne because his character is so fucking confident and just absolutely inept at everything.
Mm-hmm.
There's a part where he just falls down the stairs because he's freaking out, and it doesn't, like, cause him to get hurt or anything. They just have a full-on falling down the stair moment. I'm not gonna lie, I love it. I love that he as long as there's no Symphogear users, he thinks he's the biggest and baddest person in the world. But the moment that anyone challenges him to anything, he cries.
Oh, yeah. He's, like, the perfect example of, like, a pathetic villain who can dish it out but can't take it.
Right.
And I think Symphogear is a great platform for that.
I agree.
Because everybody else in the cast, is pretty set on their ideals.
Mm-hmm.
But John Wayne is just kind of like a rubber band in all of that, where he can either take that and, like, stretch it and then bam, go running with it,
mm-hmm.
or just absolutely fucking collapse under pressure.
Yeah, it's so
and
good.
He will constantly back and forth. I don't think there's an episode where he gets to be strictly confident or strictly pathetic. There's always at least one of each mode that he gets to go through in a single episode.
And his voice actor is a Joestar, right?
Yeah, young Joseph Joestar. So for you JoJo freaks out there, go get it. You'll enjoy it. He really sells it.
He does. His performance in this is absolutely nutty. And I'll honestly say I think a lot of the vocal performances, the voice acting in this season's pretty damn good. Even, like, Shiriba and Kirika, who are basically deadpan character or, like, over hyper active characters, they still have some good moments, and they still are able to put emotion into it, even if the dialogue doesn't necessarily make sense. So I think that Symphogear G kind of is why people like Symphogear. I think I went back earlier today and started reading some of the discussions on Reddit. And a lot of the Symphogear discussions aren't nearly as like, whoa, that's so cool, that's awesome. I mean, people were hyped about it. They're like, wow, this show's really hype. But when you read the G discussions, people are like, holy shit, that was so stupid, I love it. And I kind of think that this show is what made Symphogear as popular as it is. And I appreciate it. I remember when I was watching it, Symphogear G was the time where I'm like, I'm going to pay attention, because I kind of just flew through the original Symphogear the first time. And Symphogear G made me a little bit more excited for the show as a whole.
I can relate on that, where it's like, when this season started, I was like, I think I want to pay more attention to this, but I don't think I have the personality or capacity or something to just naturally like take it up the same way other people do.
We know you can say it, Brantley. You're a basic bitch.
Yeah, I am. There's just, I don't know. Maybe it's because I can't like get myself in the mood for it. Little things like, oh, we're gonna divert the noise into this tunnel, and then Chris can blow them all up because she's funneled them. It's like, but the noise can just go through the walls. And like that shit shouldn't bother me, but it does.
Yeah.
I should know better, but I can't turn it off. And I think that's what gets in the way for me.
No, I get that. You have a hard time separating, like, sinking into fiction that doesn't make sense even within the fiction. So
yeah, but like not all the time, but especially for this, for some reason. I need to find the pattern someday, but I haven't found it yet. like I've been thinking about Boogie Pop recently.
Of course you
Boogie
have.
Pop's dumb. I like Boogie Pop, I think. Part of it, not all of it. But when Boogie Pop is Boogie Pop, and I understand what Boogie Pop is trying to do, Boogie Pop is dumb. Like, it feels like it's constantly tripping over its own themes. It's, it kind of like, it's, I hate its character archetypes that it's setting up. It's really tropey when it's in the wrong hands. But like, for some reason, there's something going on with like the substance of the show where I can actually disengage and just let it hit me, and I might still not like it, but like, I at least am getting like the chemical surges of stimulus that that people can get out of Symphogear. I don't know. So for all the people who can enjoy Symphogear like I can't, God bless you. You've got some kind of special power. Fine lives within you, and that's great. Go kill it.
I do
literally go start warfare with your friends and shout big name attacks, and maybe do a little bit of historic appropriation while you're at it and have a grand time.
I will say that I do like in Symphogear, in this one you have two moments where we get to see the side characters do some really fun stuff. For some reason, Kazunari has them go on a Rocky style training montage training.
Yeah,
it's fucking good, and he sings, and he has this deep voice. I mean, like, if you liked Kazunari in the first season, he's just that in this season, but better. Like, I
wish there was more of him.
Yeah, at the end when he has John Wayne in the car and they're talking, it's one of my favorite scenes, and he just punches a rock. It's pretty good. And then you also have Ogawa, the ninja idol manager, who I thought of this. It's pretty interesting. So he runs on water. He does a Castlevania style backdash with after images, but he also uses one of Tsubasa's moves.
Yeah,
he uses the shadow knife move that she used on Hibiki in season 1.
Oh yeah.
So
like the shadow control.
Yeah. So did Ogawa teach Tsubasa how to be a ninja?
I mean, that's what I believe now.
It's such a fun moment, and I think that's what I love about this season, is you get to see the side characters do a little bit wonkier shit, and I'm a big fan of that. All right, so do you have any thoughts on the themes of this show, Brantley? Because I talked about this earlier, and I was mentioning how I didn't know if we were going to do a long thematic talk because I didn't really see the difference, but you're like, no, there's a huge difference.
Yeah. Before that, I want to squeeze in some final thoughts about the characters.
No, you don't get to.
So, okay, no, I'm kidding. I still think. Okay, here's what I'm gonna do. typically I don't think it's a good thing to do to say like, well, what they should have done is this, because like that's not how fiction works. You know, I can understand that like it's not difficult or like, you know, particularly productive to just give alternatives to how a work of fiction should have gone. You know, because like that's at some point the work has to get made, and subjective influence is at hand. And when you have a situation like this where like this doesn't attach well to me but it attaches well to you, then I don't want to give the impression that I think the show would be strictly better or worse if it went a different way. But it would have been better if it went a different way, and here's how. So Chris I think Chris still just doesn't get enough time to get development. She's still getting the exact same, you know, issues worked out from before. Or she's like, the way to end conflict is for me to be the winner, and so I'm going to do it fast with a lot of bullets and rockets and stuff like that. And I'm kind of disappointed because like I feel like she had all this, you know, character development with Kazunari in the first season, and it doesn't feel like it ever got to pay off here, because she's saying this stuff in like episode like 10 and 11 of this season, where it feels like the exact same like repeat situations from season 1.
Right.
And I feel like there's a big missed opportunity where she could sort of absolve those feelings by interacting with two of our new characters, Shirabe and Kirika. Because both of them are likewise dealing with like, hey, we should follow orders. We should do what, you know, we've been asked to do, because that would minimize conflict, and also we can, you know, keep ourselves well. You know, it's what we have to do to get by. And Chris has already gone through that. You know, she was fortunate enough to be helped and escaped out of that. I wish that Chris had some kind of interaction with them to see herself in them, and then sort of help pull them out of it. I get that they wanted those two characters to be their own sort of, you know, they were going to pull each other out of that quicksand. But I feel like Chris would have been like a really good insert that would also let Chris have her own development, because I feel like she hasn't gotten any yet. You know, she's more, you know, level-headed than before, you know, in the fact that she's not a, you know, a tortured megalomaniac. But, you know, still, like, even though they splice in like intimate scenes between her and Tsubasa where she's like getting food on her face, it doesn't like convince me that her character has actually been given like enough of an uplift. You know, it doesn't feel like they've actually resolved her. Maybe they will in later seasons, I don't know, but in the meantime it kind of saddens me. It feels like she's getting dragged along. That, or I wish she got more time with Kazunari.
Yep.
You know, I know that Hibiki has to sort of take up a lot of his time because of her conflict with Gungnir, which is tied to Maria, who's an important new character in the show. So, you know, I get why that is, but it feels like, you know, for the second season in a row, Chris does not get to participate like everyone else does. Tsubasa gets probably even less attention, but Tsubasa already got her spotlight in the first season. So,
and she, by the way, motorcycle destruction count is up to 4 as of this season. She has destroyed 4 motorcycles so far. So keeping tracks on that. I will not count the motorcycle that blows up in the opening except for one time of season 3, because that happens every episode, but it only happens technically one time. So yeah.
I don't think we got to mention all of the new character suits too. We mentioned Maria. Her suit is, you know, her powers are cool and whatever. I feel mixed on Kirika and Shirabe's costumes when they transform. Like I don't entirely get like the dark magician girl motif they give to Cutica.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because her weapon is like Sol Shigana, right? And like there's like, you know, I haven't looked enough into it, but like you look that up and it's like, oh, you hear about like a scimitar or something like that. It's like that would be a cool weapon. But she gets like a Halloween scythe instead, like a, you know, very typical Grim Reaper type of thing. The fact that she gets to ride it like a broom is kind of funny, but again, it's like this is weird. You know, with Shirabe, she seems to get like, I think like a, again, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but like, maybe it's like a Buddhist motif, because like her attacks will say like swastika in them. And again, we're dealing with like sort of like religious or like mythological artifacts.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, I think that's what they're going for, is like the regular original Buddhist swastika, and then we say, oh well, that's kind of like it has like a motion to it, like her like spinning saw blades, and so we mush those together, right, with her relic. Okay, you know, it also doesn't then like tie itself back to that in the look of it, but at least like the moves are trying that. I don't know.
Yeah.
They've got that with Tsubasa, where her moves are like very like, you know, Japanese in orientation and attack names and stuff. You know, but anyways, I don't know. I don't really have anything to say about that, besides that like I noticed something's going on and I haven't researched it enough. But I hope maybe I'll get it better the next time. I don't know.
But she,
yeah.
Did you mention the Heelys?
The Heelys. Shirabe has Heelys,
and
they're good.
It's good. I like the way that she moves. Actually, in XV, the final season where everyone has pretty bad transformations, I actually really like hers. I think hers is the best. But we'll talk about that in 3 episodes from now.
Oh man. Let's see. Yeah, other than that, I think I can finally talk about themes.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So there's not a lot to it. I think it comes down to like, okay, Symphogear Season 1. I had felt like it was about like song as a universal language.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, you know, throughout history, these relics of, you know, warfare are kind of like this divine contradiction to the use of song as a way where you can like speak and emote to each other without directly understanding each other's language. You know, it's that gone wrong. And like that contradicts itself in its own kind of way, but I get it. I get where it's going. But this season, it feels like the if I had to summarize it in a word, this season is about ignorance. It feels like, you know, when it's down to, say, like characters being led on, they're being misinformed or manipulated, or it's in the sense of like the characters are putting their fingers in their ears and like la 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 la, I can't hear you. It's like it feels like that's constantly happening, right? Like no one listens to reason. People are fighting for ideals that they don't entirely even understand or agree with. And it all finishes by just everything getting blown up. Like, you know, they have a main villain who they can't talk their way out with, you know, in the form of John Wayne and with the Nephilim, which is just a monster. Like, you know, there is Hibiki can't talk that thing down. There, you know, it doesn't have that kind of sentience. You know, and so like although like the tertiary villains sort of have that, their whole arc is them getting out of that, like, you know, misled villainy, you know, or their ideology putting them down the wrong path or whatever. So yeah, I feel like this is it's kind of a crash and burn of a story. where everyone's like, this is how it has to be done, and then most of it happens and they're like, oh fuck, and then they turn hard and the car flips over and explodes, and then a few of them get out okay, it's I feel like that's what it comes down to. Now some people love watching NASCAR to see people get in wrecks. That's a thing. So like, okay, if that's the direction Symphogear will take, sure. I can't blame them for that. It's fiction. It's maybe I wish it was more meaningful to me, but clearly it's already meaningful to lots of people for, different alignments. All right. So yeah, that's what I guess I can summarize it or simmer it down to. I can try to throw more at this in the sense that like it feels like that's what all these conflicts are about. So like, Miku becomes like an opponent to Hibiki, not because like she thinks it's actually like the right way to do it, but again, she's been misled, and then she got fed a ton of linker, and that like changed who Miku was, so like that's not really like actually her having a conflict worked out with Hibiki. There's like Hibiki's lip service gets finally shut down early in the season when they're like, hey, quit just talking out your ass. We're not going to have peace until we just fight it out. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of ignoring the themes from the first season. Fine as a deity seems to do like a heel turn or something. Because like she's like, I am no longer evil.
Well, I mean, she talked about it like, at the end of season 1 before she turned into dust. Yeah,
Hibiki like converted her, sort of, like it was weird. And then she's like, yeah, I'm reborn in you, but also I don't like I'm not vibing with like the whole evil thing now. So like,
it's not Saturday, so we do vibe check.
Yeah. She's just, I don't know. Is Fide just chilling now? Is that it? She's just like, well, I'm technically residing in you, but I'm not going to do anything about it. Or is she like, I'm going to support you. I'm going to be friend now. What's going on?
I honestly couldn't tell you. It's very confusing, and I'm normally pretty good at picking up shit like this. I don't know. If someone knows, they can comment and tell me what Fide's doing, because like, is she still in Shirobane, or is she gonna go disappear? I don't remember. It might come up in the end. It might come up in the next season. Hell if I know.
Yeah. Grant, do you have like final thoughts you want to deliver before we get into hypotheticals?
I do. I think one of the things you talked a little bit about this, but I do like that this show is one of the few anime that was able to look at Talk no Jutsu and be like, damn, that's kind of dumb. I give Symphogear a lot of credit for that shit. I think that it's kind of like we had this conversation a long time ago about Kill la Kill where it talked about how shitty fan service was, and you're like, yeah, that's a good topic to talk about, but then it doesn't really walk the walk. It just talks the talk. And Symphogear talks the talk a lot, and it will sometimes walk the walk. But I think that the show, as daring as it wants to be in terms of like ideas and how it portrays itself, I always feel like that it still sort of shies away from being as not only as ridiculous as it could be, but also as impactful as it could be. And I wish we got to see more of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So, do you have hypotheticals for Symphogear G that you didn't have for Symphogear season 1?
I do. First, shit. I'm sorry. I feel so scatterbrained. Can I really quickly squeeze in one last thing?
Oh, hell yeah.
About Hibiki. She's going through like major like developments, like seemingly like once every 2 episodes. Off of, like, from what I could remember and actually write down, Hibiki, like, obviously they have like the new climax song stuff that they do in the early episodes where they do like the rainbow tornado thing. We had not seen that before, so that's a new thing. Maria comes into the picture, and so now she has a rival who also has her same power of Gungnir, and so now that changes how we look at Hibiki's Gungnir. Then Hibiki gets a new power in which she can sort of like manifest her Symphogear power without actually being in Symphogear mode yet. She has like the phonic gain stuff that she gets. Her power gets corrupted, and then like she ends up neutralizing her power entirely, and then absorbs her rival's version of the power, and all of this is like in the same season.
Yeah.
And there's also the part where she gets her arm bitten off, and then she can regenerate the limb. Like, that's like, I think that's like 6 different things she kind of evolves in this season. And there's like 13 episodes, so that's like one new thing every 2 episodes.
You know, now that you mention it, we didn't really talk about Hibiki too much in the characters, just because she is the de facto lead character. But yeah, it kind of feels weird that whenever they need someone to have some sort of plot relevant superpower, Hibiki always gets it, no matter what it is.
She's like the Sasuke of this show.
She is Sasuke. She's
in the sense that like it's like new power, give it to Hibiki.
And like I kind of dig that because she like her whole character arc is kind of fitting into this role that she was kind of forced upon, so it's kind of nice to see her take a lot of W's. Yeah. But she also doesn't get a lot of L's. I mean, she literally grabs the Gungnir spear, absorbs Gungnir, and it's like, well, I lost Gungnir because they removed it from my body, but I want it back, so give it back to me.
Yeah. I guess what's kind of happening is that you see these characters who have all these like super moves, and Hibiki doesn't have those. So instead she has to like, she's sort of building up her moveset throughout the show as it goes, right? So it's like, oh, she got phonic gain. That's like one unique thing she has now. So maybe that's the thing they're going for. Maybe it's not quite that Hibiki's just getting everything. It's that she started with nothing and now has to get something.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I guess I'm glad it's Hibiki that's getting this stuff, because I'd feel like it almost goes to waste on another character. Like the other characters have some fun stuff to start with. As much as I don't really care that much for Kirika, her guillotine move is hilarious and cool.
Yeah.
So like, I guess I am glad that Hibiki is a lead character that I care about.
Yeah, I do too. And honestly, I kind of like all the characters to an extent. Just as they're fun to watch. Like if they were slice of life characters, I think they would be a good group of characters.
Definitely watchable. Sorry, I feel like I'm just being in negative Nephilim this whole episode.
No, that's fine. So
okay,
hypotheticals.
Okay, first, the ancient soul of Fine awakens in you. What do you do with your new cool purple shield power thing?
So I jaywalk a lot, like constantly, because there is the intersection that is close to my apartment is one of the busiest intersections where I live, and if I wait for the walk sign, it can take like 5 minutes. Or I can jaywalk and ignore most of it. But there are times where people will turn, and they're not turning correctly. I'm a good jaywalker. I'm a chaotic good jaywalker. and people will take a turn that they're not supposed to. And if I had that shield power, I would just stand there, and I would just smash the front of their car for doing what they just did. I have thought about this for literal years. Ever since I moved to a place that actually has like foot traffic, back when I went to college, I've always had this, and normally it is like a big rock. I bring up like an earthbender and just have him crash into the big rock. But I can work with a big ol' shield too.
Yeah. Yeah. I also would like I would want to use it for like sort of stiff arming situations, like, but my pet peeve, what I really dislike, is walking on the sidewalk, and you'll have like a 3 wide set of people.
Oh yeah, I know
who are coming in one direction. You know, like it also bothers me when like you have like 2 people side by side and they won't go single file when they want to pass you, especially during pandemic conditions. But like, it's like, okay, whatever. You know, I'll move and I'll do my best to get out of the way. And as you know, typically there's, you know, I can check and make sure that I can sort of pace myself differently so I can swerve around them without also being in the way of any like bikers or cars or whatever. But 3 people is like so much. It's like, please, like just stop talking to each other for one moment and go single file so we can all make this less awkward. And it does not happen. So I would love to just purple shield go up and just kind of,
dude,
you know, just like push past someone.
I get that so much too. There's a trail downtown here that is very good for longboarding and riding your bike, and you're also not supposed to walk on it. Like, you can walk on it, but you're supposed to get out of the way for faster traffic because it's supposed to be a bike path.
Yeah. And
townies will come here, and I love to longboard at night because I like seeing the city at night because I'm a basic bitch. And but townies will just walk and they'll like take the entire trail, and I just want to run into them. I've been yelled at because I've aggressively gone around people because they weren't letting me pass. So yeah, absolutely run into people with Fine shield. I have a question.
Yeah,
I have a hypothetical. So Fine is awakened in you, and you have the shield, right?
Yeah.
Why doesn't she vibe with you, and why does she let you do what you want?
So in other words, she's like, you're not a good match for me, so I'm just gonna chill and not bother you.
Kind of like what she did with Shirabe, where she's just like, yeah, whatever. But what causes her to do that for you?
She'd be like, hey, I watched your fucking podcast. The fuck, bro?
I feel like we have to talk shit about our own podcast at least once an episode.
Well, particularly now because I am shitting on the very property that Fine comes from.
That's fair.
So in a weird meta sense, I feel like if I don't if Symphogear G doesn't sit that well with me, then Fine probably wouldn't either. But I think she would appear in the back of my head every now and then to just whisper like, rancid. Just, fucking get out of there. Okay. I do have one more hypothetical.
What is your last hypothetical?
Okay, so this is kind of a carryover from our first season one. So, we discovered when rewatching Symphogear season 1, that we do go attend the very first concert in that show.
Oh, we do.
There's a part where there's some people up at like a cashier stand of some sort, and one of them has like black hair and one of them has brown hair, and the brown haired one has glasses, and so it's like, oh, it's us, it's Grant and I, you know, because that's all you need, really. It's just a couple features and on some anime kids, and there you go, that's us. So here's my question. Knowing how that concert goes down, did we survive for season 2?
I did. You didn't.
That's super true. I'm kind of offended that you actually spoke on my behalf, but you're super right.
I tried to get you to come with me because I knew where the emergency exit was because I noticed it while I was getting merch, but you didn't want to come, so you didn't even die by a noise. You just like slipped and fell.
You're like, hey Brantley, there's the emergency exit just in case that's, you want to remember that. I don't know, in case something happens. It's pretty packed in here. And I'm like, I don't know. I think maybe that's not really thematically relevant to my interests right now, and I didn't commit it to memory. Yeah, also I was the like slowest participating member of my track team when I was in middle school, high school.
You were not in track in high school.
No, middle school then. Yeah. I did participate. Like I would I did sprints. And I got last in every single race I ever did. Like track events were weird for me. Like I didn't quite understand how things were going on. Like because like they could just like be like, all right, your event's coming up, and someone be like, Brantley, I don't want to run my 800. Will you do it for me? I'm like, I mean, I'm not gonna do well. I'm gonna get last. They're like, yeah, I know, but I just don't want to do it. I'm like, okay, and just go run it, and it was done. And then like, I was like, do I need to tell someone I'm done? Do they like record? Who's watching this? I didn't understand any of it. There was definitely another school that was there that we were competing against, but like, I had no fucking clue what was going on.
Beautiful.
But I do know that I lost every single race, including the race that I ran against my brother. So my twin brother. Because we would have like the two of us would be in like a 100 sprint or something, and even in those races I lost to him. So there you go.
Beautiful.
No way I would have made it out of there alive.
Do you have any final thoughts about Symphogear G?
I don't, especially if I want to leave this podcast with my life. So, well, hey, if people want to vehemently disagree with me, where can they leave their thoughts?
So we have a Twitter account, at familiar Territ Territ 2. I tweet nonsense all the fucking time on that.
It's good nonsense.
I like it. I did call out Brantley for being a fake fan of Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Is it really a call out if it's just like distressing like facts?
Yes. We can leave a comment on our YouTube channel. I check it constantly. If you find this on a Reddit post, you can comment on the Reddit post that I post this on. Brantley, what are we watching for next time?
I think we're gonna try for Earth Maiden Arjuna. Strangely enough, another satellite show.
Hell yeah!
So we're not leaving that. But surely a very different feeling than Symphogear. So yeah, we're gonna check it out, see what it's all about, and then who knows where we're gonna end up. It's a new one for us.
Yeah, it'll be fun. So if you liked what you listened to, you can like, comment, subscribe, or don't. We are not a megalomaniac scientist trying to destroy the world.
さよならだ。